Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from RicoScores. Just got back inside. That's why I look like this. But I definitely wanted to knock out this video. It's another video breaking down some interesting reports. And maybe some of these are rumors. Maybe some of these are factual. But we got to dive into it. First of all, Bieniemy Fowler loves talking about different teams around the NFL. It seems like he talks about ours quite a bit. Based on a lot of what he says is trustworthy sources around him, several interesting things came out around it. Like we're not going to talk about the Jack Del Rio stuff in this video. I want to talk about the stuff I care about the most. But he has like a whole section in the big ESPN article about like Jack Del Rio, how that whole situation went down, why they fired him, how long they were thinking about firing him, all that type of stuff. But what I want to focus on today is that this whole report is basically just a full rundown on everything going on with the Commanders. The Washington Commanders front office views quarterback Sam Howell as a potential franchise guy, future guy here, and at least the guy that's earned it to be a candidate to compete for that starting job in this offseason, whether they take a quarterback or not. There's a report that Eric Bieniemy, it's like a full background information on, even some names mentioned in certain situations where it really gets to the bottom of why some players don't like Eric Bieniemy and what happened, how we got here. But also, there's some information about how Eric Bieniemy has basically heard these reports. He's been an open book. He's left like an open room policy type of thing. Players have complained to him directly, and he's changed a lot of things. He's taken step backs in certain ways. He's kind of nerfed some of the aggression and fast pace that he had going on with practices, requiring people to meet extra early and stuff as often, things like that. So we're gonna do a deep dive into how the front office views Sam Howell and how this team currently views Eric Bieniemy. Now, of course, at the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily, you would hope the players like your potential next head coach, but at the end of the day, even if the players are complaining with, we already have Terry trade talks, we already have Jonathan Allen trade talks, Chase Young-Montes already gone. A lot of these guys, even like a Curtis Samuel, Antonio Gibson, aren't even on contract at the end of this season. So we'll see how that goes. Players, again, you would like for them to like the potential next head coach, offensive coordinator, whatever Eric Bieniemy may end up being, even if he may just not be here. Maybe we bring in a Ben Johnson or something, but I don't think how the players feel about him would necessarily affect too much. I think this is a Josh Harris, Eugene Shin, whoever they hire as GM and head coach. That's their thing to decide. But we're still going to dive into all of this just to see, it's a really interesting background information on what Eric Bieniemy has going on and how the team views Sam Howell. So before we dive into all of that, make sure you still farm that like button, still farm the subscription button, and still farm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure y'all stay tuned for all of the content. Again, I'm clearly not home right now, but I'm doing whatever I can whenever I get a little bit of free time to just go ahead and knock a video out. I have so many video ideas, so y'all are about to start getting at minimum a video a day, but more than likely even 2 videos a day at a certain point. We're on a bye week, which is the perfect time for me to get a lot of these videos done. I'm trying to work on top GM candidates, top head coaching candidates, defensive coordinator candidates, maybe even offensive coordinator candidates if Eric Bieniemy's just gone completely, or if he gets promoted to head coach, which I don't think is very likely, but if he were, who would be his offensive coordinator? Who, would he match with him? Would they like Sam Howell? We have a whole lot of draft stuff to look at. We have a whole lot of team building stuff, not only just front office wise, but free agency. We're going to start taking a look at a lot of the top free agents at positions of needs. I'm working on a video that's breaking down our biggest positions of needs. And I also specify in that video which ones we should go after in free agency, which ones should we attack in draft. So make sure you stay tuned. There's so much content on the way. But instead of stalling the offer any longer, let's go ahead and get to it. Let's get it.
He's our quarterback for the 5-10 years, and I truly believe that.
All right, so the report from Bieniemy Fowler says several people within the Commanders building believe that Sam Howell has placed himself in the conversation to be the team starter for the next season and probably even longer. Quote from Bieniemy Fowler: despite his inexperience and low draft position, Rivera and the staff loved Howell's poise, had confidence in his decision making, and believed they could win with him. That thinking has largely proven to be well-founded. Despite being in danger of breaking the NFL's single-season record of 76 sacks, and he has been dropped 58 times so far, definitely on pace to break that. Howell is second in the league in passing yards and accounted for 21 touchdowns, 18 passing, 3 rushing on the year. But you can't also leave out the fact that he leads the NFL in turnovers. But we're going to talk about that. We're about to get into that soon. We're going to talk about the bad of the Howell. We're going to talk about his lows. We're going to talk about the good and the highs. We're going to talk about how he's a mixed blend, but a guy that, you see some potential. You see some traits. Maybe they're in the right offensive system. Maybe with a better O-line. Maybe with better weapons, most notably a tight end. Maybe Sam Howell can succeed. But there are obvious negatives. Even a guy like me that believes that Sam Howell can be a franchise quarterback and would prefer to use our draft capital to build around the quarterback rather than taking another quarterback and then having less draft capital to build around said quarterback. I mean, not to go on a super tangent, but even if you were to draft like a Jaden Daniels, who I feel like probably one of the most underrated quarterbacks I've seen in the draft process in a while. I just can't believe the disrespect that he's been receiving. Even as a Georgia Bulldog fan, looking at him at LSU, what he's doing, his deep ball is ridiculous. It's just like, it's not his fault they're losing games. I'm telling you that right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if 5 years down the road, we look back and Jaden Daniels ends up being the best quarterback from this class. Of course, I'm not necessarily saying take, Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams and Drake May and guys like that, especially when it comes to ceilings, but do not sleep on Jaden Daniels. But either way, if we were to take a Jaden Daniels, because I'm pretty sure we're not going to have a high enough draft pick to take Caleb Williams and Drake May, because they're probably going to go 1 and 2. But you never know. We have a whole offseason to work through, combine, draft process, pro days, everything like that, interviews. Even though CJ Stroud just pretty much told you to rip up that whole Wonderlic test, like that whole thing has no real correlation to how good an NFL quarterback can be. He even said it himself. He was like, I don't take tests, I'll ball or something like that. And he's clearly balling. So forget the Wonderlic, but still, we have so much offseason to go through. I'm just assuming it's probably still going to be Caleb Williams and Drake May, but you never know. I wouldn't put any money on it. But either way, in range of where we're picking, if we were to take a quarterback, it would probably be Jaden Daniels. And I love Jaden Daniels, big fan of him. But I would prefer to have Sam Howell and elite offensive tackles, potentially also an elite tight end along with them, maybe some receivers as well. Draft a top center around him rather than spending all your draft capital on Jaden Daniels and then using the little bit of pieces you have left to potentially build around them. But it's no sure things. I mean, to miss out on an Olu Fashanu or Joe Alt or even my boy Brock Bowers, you bring Jaden Daniels here, he's going to have basically the same O-line in general. I mean, maybe you can make some additions later in the draft. Hopefully you can find some sleepers in there, or maybe you attack in free agency. I don't know. But I just see it as Jaden Daniels and no elite left tackle versus Sam Howell with an elite left tackle. That's how I'm looking at it. So I think Sam Howell has shown enough. He has enough traits. Enough things that you just cannot teach. The poise, the bounce back from a terrible moment. It could literally be the play before. He's going to still go out there and throw that ball 30 yards down the field in a tight window and complete it a lot of the times. His scramble ability, his all-schedule stuff. We're going to dive into all of that. So let's talk about the lows first. First of all, looking at quarterback production when it comes to EPA, he actually has a negative one. I mean, the only quarterbacks worse than him in the NFL this season, according to EPA, which is total expected points added. So basically, how much value do they add to the team? Are we worse because of Sam Howell, or are we better because of him? According to these advanced stats, they don't like Sam Howell. They feel like he's literally only better than Desmond Ridder, Kenny Pickett, Joshua Dobbs, Daniel Jones, Mac Jones, Bryce Young, and Zach Wilson. They feel like everybody else is better than him. Derek Carr, Aiden O'Connell, Justin Fields, Will Levis, Deshaun Watson, Gardner Minshew just keeps going up and up and up. And they have Brock Purdy as number 1. So I don't exactly know how much to trust this data. That's really interesting. CJ Stroud is top 5. Let's just go ahead and throw that out there as well while we're here. Jordan Love is top 7. Kirk Cousins is like 8th. Jared Goff isn't too far behind. It's really interesting, man. Baker Mayfield is above guys like Russell Wilson, Geno Smith, Joe Burrow. Gardner Minshew was somewhere in the middle, which is pretty interesting. But moving on, another advanced stat. When you're looking at total pass, block grade, and then EPA per play from quarterback, as you're seeing on the screen right now, there's a line going through to basically divide the good quarterbacks from the bad quarterbacks, or the quarterbacks that's like, man, you have good protection, but you're not doing anything with it. Or you're on the other side where you have no protection, but you're making the most of it. basically, like if you're looking at team pass block grade, a guy that's over the line, you would say like a Tyrod Taylor. His offensive line's been terrible, but he's been more productive than expected based on how bad his offensive line is. Whereas Sam Howell, you go to him, and basically he's been worse than what his O-line, how well he should be playing, based on how his O-line is playing. If you're below the line, you're not doing as well as you should be compared to how much blocking you're getting by your offensive line. So a lot of advanced stats don't like Sam Howell, but I believe a lot of that stuff is fixable. I feel like him staring down receivers like that pick six he had against Dallas. I feel like him being able to scan the field better, get through his reads quicker so guys like Terry McLaurin can actually catch more passes. I think a lot of those things can be fixed. But the poise he has, the ability to make plays out of the pocket. Speaking of making plays out of the pocket, man, right now he has the highest Pro Football Focus grade out of any quarterback in the NFL out of pocket. Like Pro Football Focus literally has a quarterback rankings breakdown where they have like different accolades, different titles, like the best quarterback versus man coverage, best quarterback versus the blitz, and things like that. Sam Howell is the best and easily the best. It's not even necessarily close with the guy in second in quarterback grade when outside of the pocket. He has a 90.4 Pro Football Focus grade on throws outside of the pocket. It's just that was just against the Dolphins alone. Though that's not necessarily the whole year, but this is just something he's been doing. He completed 5 out of his 8 passes for 80 yards, 5 first downs, averaging 16.0 yards per attempt. So when it comes to being the best quarterback in the NFL, at the very least in Week 13, they feel like Sam Howell is that guy. Also, 4 games remaining in the season, Sam Howell's on pace to throw for 4,532 passing yards. So that's another high note as well. But we're going to talk about it soon. A lot of those passing yards aren't necessarily the best passing yards. It's just also you got to look at it as like, well, he's also throwing the ball the most. So, of course, he would have the most passing yards. Doesn't necessarily mean he's efficient, but he does have the most passing yards, which sounds nice. But when you do a deeper dive, because like, Sam Howell this season has 25 big-time throws. That's the 5th most in the NFL. That's great. But then he also has 22 turnover-worthy plays, which is the 2nd most in the NFL, which is terrible. So he's top 5 in great things, but he's also one of the worst in certain bad things. I mean, he's arguably the most volatile quarterback in the NFL right now. It doesn't get much more volatile than a guy like Sam Howell. And I feel like, for me personally, I'll take the guy that's volatile over the guy that's safe, because I'll take those things you just can't teach, those big time plays and stuff like that. We'll work on that. We'll refine your game. He's still technically a redshirt freshman. He hasn't started an entire, even 16 games in his career yet. We have a 17-game season right now. He's still, by starting wise, by playing game wise, I mean, he's only played in games he started. Just by playing game wise, he's still a rookie. I think we can iron a lot of those things out. And I think most importantly, again, like the point I brought up earlier, with the draft and free agency, you give him a really good offensive line and see what he can do with that. You give him a really good, trustworthy tight end that can even get open on his own, that an offensive coordinator actually schemes open and things like that, and is a mismatch, is a dual threat guy that when he's not on the field, it doesn't automatically let the defense know, oh, we're passing the ball, oh, we're throwing the ball. Remember, I bring this up all the time. Jeremy Sprinkle on the field, teams know we're running the ball. We better not be passing it, and we better not be passing it this way if we are. When Jordan Reed and Vernon Davis were on the field, we were definitely throwing it. And if we did want to run, you better not run to their side, because that play is going for negative yards. So it's big. Jay Gruden's been screaming for a dual threat tight end for years, even since he was here. And I don't think people understand how serious that is. And Eugene Shen, I did a full over 30-minute breakdown of what position groups he prioritizes the most when rebuilding teams, and the way he turned the Ravens around, the Dolphins around, the Jaguars around, how just great those teams look, just built from top to bottom. He had a lot to do with that, and he's a guy that prioritizes tight ends above a lot of other position groups. He puts it higher than most other position groups than most fans would probably do. So I'm warning you now, we're probably going to go heavy on dual threat tight end in free agency, whether it be through the draft or taking a guy like Brock Bowers sooner than y'all would hope, because I know a lot of y'all would prefer to go tackle there. I'm very happy either way. We get an elite tackle, we get a generational tight end like Brock Bowers. I'm happy either way. But of course, I'm a Georgia Bulldog fan, so I would love nothing more than to get more Bulldogs on my Commanders. But either way, man, I'm super excited. I think Sam Howell can be that guy with the right stuff around him. I just felt like Receivers not getting open as much as they should. And when I do I'm still working on my breakdown for the review for everything that happened in Miami Dolphins game, breaking down like every position group, every coach, every player that contributed. I have some interesting statistics about how Curtis Samuel is the only receiver in our entire receiver group, including Terry McLaurin and first round pick Jahan Dotson, actually getting open at the very least at average level. Like, it's pretty bad. So, like, receivers not getting open as much as they should. We don't have any dynamic tight ends that truly affect a game plan. Like, a defensive coordinator has to game plan for them, and it opens up other weaknesses on the defense because, oh, man, we got to worry about this tight end. And then the offensive line can't block to save their lives, especially, I mean, I know we can play some blame on Sam Howell holding the ball too long, but there was some obvious plays where the offensive line was terrible against the Dolphins. I mean, some of Sam Howell's best plays were him 2 seconds after snapping the ball, receiving the snap, and a defensive lineman is trying to tackle him. He has to break out of it and then scramble for a few yards or make a throw on the run and things like that. So he deserves better. I think once he gets better, he'll do better, in my opinion. Now, Eric Bieniemy's a whole nother discussion, but at the end of the day, man, when it comes to Sam Howell, I think we do need to give Eric Bieniemy some credit. Going to the Jeremy Fowler article, he said several team sources have been effusive. Howell has, at minimum, placed himself in the conversation to be the starter in 2024 and possibly longer. Quote, he's just getting better and better each and every week, wide receiver Jahan Dotson said during week 11, especially his pocket presence. It's grown tremendously, unquote. I completely agree there with that pocket presence. Still have a lot of negatives that we need to polish up a little bit, but pocket presence and awareness and the ability to like, oh man, this guy's coming here, I need to move this way, and still, he's getting really good at that. Continuing with the article, the lion's share of the credit for that belongs to Eric Bieniemy. He spent the previous 5 seasons as the defensive coordinator with the Chiefs, but was not their primary play caller. Bieniemy came to Washington last winter with the chance to remove the not a play caller label that had become an albatross as he passed over 15 head coaching jobs with 14 different teams over the previous 5 years. Bieniemy's case has served as a boiling point for the scarcity of black people in head coaching roles and the different standards to which candidates of color seem to be held. At the end of the day, though, the thing I mostly want to point out is that he does deserve a lot of the credit for what Sam Howell has been doing. I know Sam Howell still has a lot of positives. Our offense in general, Sam Howell has a lot of negatives. Our offense in general still has a lot of negatives. I mean, we're out here not scoring as many points as we should be. We're scoring less points per game this season than we were with Scott Turner. But at the end of the day, when it comes to QB development, Bieniemy does deserve some credit for that. So let's go ahead and get to that. So let's go take it all the way back with Eric Bieniemy. Jeremy Fowler tweeted himself from his own article while promoting the article. Player grumbling, intensity that sent shockwaves, awkward firings, and hollow messaging. Feels like new direction coming across the board, basically saying that Josh Harris is probably going to clean house. That more than likely includes an Eric Bieniemy. But before we even dive into the article, one really notable quote from the article is, quote, the losing has amplified some of the grumbling about Bieniemy's style and play calling. Again, like I said, even before the season started, before we even played one regular season game, the style that Eric Bieniemy coaches with, the intense, highly demanding style, the not accepting any average, any mediocrity, is great when you're winning. It's terrible when you're losing. Because when you're losing, all it sounds like is just a nagging parent always on your neck. Just constant, just nagging, and you just want it to stop. I mean, when somebody's doing that and it's winning, it's bringing the best out of you and your team, then you're like, okay, I love the tough coaching. But tough coaching when you're losing, it's like, bro, we're not even winning, man. Can you just sit down somewhere type of stuff. So I already knew that's probably where we were headed if we didn't have a successful season, especially specifically on the offensive side of the ball. Now, if we were going out there scoring 30 points per game and still losing, maybe it wouldn't be as bad. But the fact that our offense has also been inept at a lot of games, most notably this past game against the Dolphins, it's like, yeah, man, I mean, you're doing all of this yelling and we're not even scoring points type of thing. But going into the article, while Howell has performed admirably and Bieniemy has proved he can both design and implement an offense, Rivera's wager on a 54-year-old coach has been something less than an instant jackpot. Completely agree. I'm a Bieniemy fan. I'm less of a Bieniemy fan now than I was coming in. I feel like it's a mix of both. He was dealt a bad hand. What can you do with that? But I also felt like he didn't maximize with what he had with that bad hand. I mean, if you're a guy that plays spades, hearts, rummy, tunk, poker, blackjack, I played everything, even dominoes. It's quite a bit of luck in there, but also, no matter how bad of a hand you get, there's a way you can work around. There's a way you can work magic, and I felt like Bieniemy didn't work as much magic as I had hoped. But I also still feel like that I'm one of those people that feels like if we give Bieniemy another chance, even though I do prefer a more proven guy, maybe like a Ben Johnson, if we want to go that route. But if we were to give Bieniemy another chance with a better offensive line, better weapons, receivers, tight ends, all of that, and also just an additional year. I mean, this is his rookie season as being a full-time play caller. I wouldn't be surprised if things just magically started to work out and then Bieniemy becomes the guy that we hoped he would become. But I also can see why, again, for reasons that it didn't seem like he necessarily maximized what he had, just like Jeremy Fowler said, he wasn't an instant jackpot. It's not just obvious, oh man, Bieniemy is the truth and we just need to fix these things. I think it's a mix of both. We need to fix some things, Bieniemy needs to fix some things, especially his 4th-and-1 play calling. I still don't get that. That's probably my biggest gripe with him, I'm not gonna lie. And you also got to give him credit because, like, even offensive line wise, specifically, receivers not getting open. We took up Sam Howell, still working through fine tuning a lot of the negatives of his game. I mean, you could tell from early on in the season that Bieniemy wanted to take deep shots, but Sam Howell was getting sacked so much that it just got to a point by like halfway through the season, I felt like he should have done this quicker. Again, give or take for everything that's good and bad to Eric Bieniemy. There's excuses, and then there's some things where it's like, what do you want him to do? With this, I felt like it took him too long to do it, but it still sucks that he has to literally rip out like half of his playbook. Just go ahead and burn it because we don't have the offensive line that can block. Now, granted, one of the worst offensive linemen we have is Andrew Wiley, probably a guy that he co-signed. He's here because of him. But Nick Gates isn't Eric Bieniemy's fault. Charles Leno is not Eric Bieniemy's fault. The revolving door at left guard, whatever. I mean, between Sadiq Charles, Chris Paul, I believe in those guys' talents, but they haven't been great. Samuel Cosmi's even had some down games, even though I feel like he has the potential to be like another Brandon Sheriff. But this offensive line is not Eric Bieniemy's fault. One piece of it, Andrew Wiley, you could potentially blame on him, but at the end of the day, this O-line doesn't even allow Eric Bieniemy to run a lot of the plays that he wants to run. So it's just like, I mean, again, I would not be surprised if Eric Bieniemy goes somewhere else and that offense just suddenly looks like what we wanted it to look like. Some of it's on him, but a lot of it is also on the personnel that we have. Even just Jack Del Rio. I mean, you can blame Jack Del Rio for some things, but you can clearly tell that even with Jack Del Rio gone, this defense just sucks, period. So, hey, man, it's a really interesting situation. Moving on with the article, Rivera relinquished a degree of power and by extension some authority within the team by bringing in Bieniemy. Because Rivera wanted to shake things up after the firing of previous offensive coordinator Scott Turner by giving Bieniemy influence over the team's regular season practice and meeting schedules, among other areas. Literally every year that Rivera's been here, he's given up a slice of his power every time. Remember when he first got here, he was Bill Belichick. He was everybody. Then after a while, he was like, all right, this GMing thing, man, let's bring in Martin Mayhew, Marty Herney, and Chris Polian to help with that. And then, Jack Del Rio started to get more power. He completely took over the defense. That's why we run more man. Rivera prefers to run more zone. I'm going to talk about that in my Miami Dolphins review video because we ran a lot more zone against the Dolphins than we normally have in previous games in the Jack Del Rio. So that's a real thing that Rivera had an influence over the defense. But he let Jack Del Rio run the whole defense. And then when Eric Bieniemy gets here this offseason, not only is Eric Bieniemy running the entire offense, he's also running the practices, the meeting schedules. He's basically like, literally an assistant head coach. It's almost like him and Rivera splitting the head coaching job in half, and Bieniemy's running the entire offense. Technically, Bieniemy's doing more than Rivera, other than Rivera signing off. Martin Mayhew's like, okay, we want to go with this draft pick. We want to sign this guy in free agency. Rivera, are you cool with that? All right, cool, let's do it. But Rivera's had less and less power as we go on. Bieniemy came in and had way more power than Scott Turner ever had. Just wanted to go ahead and point that out as well. Like the Chiefs, the Commanders have switched to a Monday off day during pre-game weeks instead of the customary Tuesday. So that's an influence that Eric Bieniemy had on this team that wasn't here before he got here. Some players, including team veterans and those with families, have not warmed to it yet. Quote, it's what Bieniemy wants, unquote, one player grumbled. So some players, even just something that small. It may not be small to them, but us as fans, you're like, well, having an off day on Monday or Tuesday, what's the big difference? With Eric Bieniemy coming here, now our off day is on Monday instead of with Tuesdays, with most NFL teams have, what the Commanders had before Eric Bieniemy gets here. So before he got here, that's just one of the many changes that Eric Bieniemy brought here that has players frustrated. Continuing with the article, among the players' other issues early in the year per team sources was that afternoon offensive meetings frequently ran long and got in the way of players needing treatment. Bieniemy's initial concession was to allow players to use foam rollers on the floor of the meeting rooms to save meeting time per a team source. So Bieniemy is just more demanding about you need to be in these meetings earlier, more often, and for longer time. So I know a lot of y'all need treatment. Well, how about you do that treatment while we're in these meetings? Like, Eric Bieniemy is not playing. You're going to be in these meetings. In recent weeks, Bieniemy has relaxed some of the demands, including shortening Wednesday practices from 2 hours to closer to an hour and a half. Quote, he's gotten better at respecting our time, unquote, one player told ESPN. These are sources from Commanders players to, it's a lot of anonymous sources here, but it sounds pretty believable. Continuing with the article, but Bieniemy's approach remains a matter of some debate. In training camp, when star receiver Terry McLaurin intervened after defensive back Benjamin St-Juste hit a teammate in what McLaurin deemed an overzealous manner, Bieniemy fired an explicitive warning for him to return to the huddle. McLaurin would not back down, vowing to defend his teammate. As one chief source said of Bieniemy, quote, he's demanding and he'll push people, and he doesn't care if he ruffles feathers, unquote. That same chief source said many players in Kansas City needed that push, including quarterback Pat Mahomes and tight end Travis Kelce. Some guys prefer that, some guys don't. It's not just black and white. It's very gray. It's a mixed bag. I'm pretty sure some Commanders players are happy that we have Eric Bieniemy. Terry McLaurin, when we first got him, before we ever had a practice, was really excited about Eric Bieniemy's coaching style. But maybe over time, some guys that did like it don't like it anymore. Some guys that did like it in the beginning still like it. And then there's some players that just never wanted a tough coach like that. Which just tells you everything you need to know about Ron Rivera being the disciplinarian and military guy. Eric Bieniemy gets here, and suddenly it's just a whole 180 on how tough our coaching is. So I guess Rivera's coaching wasn't tough at all. At the very least, though, by default, it was tougher than Jay Gruden, who looked like he was out there getting bullied by the players at times. But moving on with the article, quote, I'm never going to change who I am, Bieniemy said last week. I've always been like this. I'm going to be your biggest fan, but I'm also going to be your harshest critic. I know everybody's not perfect, but one thing they can control is their effort and their attitude, unquote. And I love that quote. I hope that's what we live by moving on as a franchise. Even if Eric Bieniemy isn't here, I like those high standards. I like that type of stuff. Continuing with the article, multiple sources said Bieniemy and the offensive coaches work well past midnight some nights during the week. So even some coaches may not like it. Less than standard practice in an NFL that typical includes early morning starts to the workday. One member of the staff said while the long hours are a testament to Bieniemy's stamina, the pace is nearly impossible to maintain, even in a notoriously sleep-deprived NFL coaching profession due to the length of the season. So the NFL is already highly demanding, and even people that are like, yeah, but I can tough that out, are looking at Eric Bieniemy like, man, you going a little too far. I know I go a little too far in comparison to other professions out there in the world, being an NFL coach where I just never sleep, but you are even a little bit crazier than I am. That's how coaches are looking at Bieniemy, basically. And Bieniemy acknowledged the demands on the staff, but said that they were a part of establishing a winning culture. Quote, when you are a new staff, everybody's getting to know each other, unquote. From Eric Bieniemy, we're establishing a culture of accountability. So in order for us to be an example of what we want our team to be on offense, we have to set the groundwork, unquote. So it's not just players. He's demanding a high level of greatness even from his coaches. So it's not just a player thing. Even some of the coaches are looking at him a little crazy, and Bieniemy's looking like, well, how you want the players to go out there and be great if we can't set the standard ourselves as coaches? But yeah, man, there was one time in that New York Giants game, October 22nd, when we lost 14-7. Terry McLaurin was very critical of the scheme. He said when the Giants were throwing up blitzes, basically he was like, "Man, throw me the ball." And how at some point he threw his first fade late in the third quarter for a 27-yard gain to Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin's basically like, "Man, run that more. Like, what are we doing? Like, what that worked. Why are we not doing that more?" His exact quote was, I would definitely like to see us continue to get those up early because I think it really forces defenses to play more honest. They can't blitz, and the safeties are at 10, 12 yards. They can't do that if you're beating them down the field, unquote. So basically, Terry McLaurin is like basically saying the things that Eugene Shin wants to do. How about we attack and put pressure on the defense in the passing game, deep down the field and all that type of stuff so that it can help open up the run game for us. And again, I mean, It sounds like Eric Bieniemy wants to, but this offensive line just won't let you. So Terry McLaurin, honestly, you shouldn't be talking to Eric Bieniemy. You need to be talking to Andrew Wiley and those guys. Like, hey man, if you can block, maybe Eric Bieniemy would call these plays that would benefit our offense. It's basically one thing in the way of another. You fix one thing, it'll fix everything else. But that thing in the back is now in the way of this. It's just, man, it's a tough thing. Better play calling will help the offensive line. Offensive line will add to better play calling. It is the chicken or the egg. But Terry McLaurin, who was held without a catch in Sunday's loss to the Dolphins, has met weekly with Bieniemy since that public criticism back on October 22nd. He said, quote, I've had conversations with a number of players, and the beauty of it is some are very, very good and productive, Bieniemy told ESPN. I wish they would share some of their thoughts with me because when it's all said and done, this is about us, but we are going to do what we feel is best for our team, unquote. Now, while changes in both on and off the field approach have prevailed since Bieniemy came aboard, the wins have not followed. And the offense has scored 20 or fewer points in 4 of the past 5 games. The losing has amplified some of the grumbling about both Eric Bieniemy's style and play calling. But Bieniemy Defenders insist the complaints are unfair to a coach trying to revamp a system with mediocre talent in some areas. And I think that's also a great point. Rivera built this team, and Eric Bieniemy's trying to do the best with what he can do with what he has. Eric Bieniemy did not choose this receiving group. He did not choose this tight end group. He only chose one offensive lineman out of the entire offensive line. He technically didn't choose this quarterback, even though he really likes him. So, I mean, it is a tough... Decker Carsey was a tough hand to be given, but it is what it is, man. You got to keep working at it. You got to keep working. But also, Rivera has backed him up a lot in recent interviews. He said, quote, what he's doing with our quarterback right now shows he's capable. Are we struggling? Yeah, we're struggling. But there's more things to it, unquote. So basically, Rivera's saying Bieniemy's doing everything he can. And if anything, just look at how much Sam Howell has developed. I know we're losing. I know our offense doesn't look good, but it's not necessarily Eric Bieniemy's fault. That's what Rivera's saying. And when you look at it, though, I mean, there's a lot of stats that point to the bad of what Eric Bieniemy's doing. I mean, the fact that none of our receivers have at least a 40-yard catch this season is wild. John Kahn pointed that out. He said, I think we had like 8 of them last year under Scott Turner. And then you would have to go back before 1970 to have a season where we don't at least have one receiver catching a pass 40 yards or further. And so far, we don't have that this season. But at the same time, same thing, explosive big plays. Right now, we are 10th in the NFL with 77 total plays. When you're talking about 10-plus yard rushes, we have 37. When you're talking about 20-plus yard receptions, we have 40. Which puts us 10th in the NFL with 77 big plays. We're ahead of the Bills, the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Browns, Broncos. And again, these are running and passing. So I know we pass the ball more than everybody else in the NFL, but hey, man, Bieniemy's... one big gripe I've had with him, too, is that I feel like we've abandoned the run too much. Now we're starting to run the ball better. But has it necessarily produced more points and a better offense overall? Not necessarily. But hey, man, at least we're starting to see some glimmers of hope, some shine, some light in there that maybe we can get this run game going a little bit better. I feel like he can design a good run game. He just doesn't call a good run game because he just abandons the run. We're leading the NFL in passing attempts and passing yards by a pretty big margin, especially passing attempt-wise, which shows that we're just not that efficient. But also, before we get up out of here, something random, nothing to do with anything else we talked about for real. But just to let y'all know, for those of y'all that are season ticket holders, maybe you're aware, maybe you're not, but you probably already got an email for your season ticket renewal for next year. And I know with the way that this season is going right now, I know a lot of y'all are hesitant to be like, man, I'm ready to re-up on that. I understand. And to make matters worse, it's been reported that the Commanders are raising season ticket prices for 2024 by an average of 8.9%. So not only are they asking you to renew your season tickets at a bad time when this team... We're not even tanking. We're just so bad we don't even have to tank. But we're on our way to a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. Right now we have the 4th pick. But then on top of that, they're also increasing the prices by almost 9% on average. That's crazy. So Josh Harris, I don't know what you need to do. You may want to take those prices down because that doesn't sound very encouraging for people to want to re-up on season tickets. Or if you're not even a season ticket holder yet like me, if I were interested in becoming a new season ticket holder, I mean, why would I even want to compete with that? With the product that we're seeing on the field right now and the prices are getting higher, the level of play, the product on the field is lower, but the price is higher. You got to make that make sense, Josh Harris. I know you're trying. I believe in you. I know you're doing a lot of things the right way, but that just doesn't even sound like it makes sense to us fans. But I just wanted to make y'all aware of that for those of y'all who aren't. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button. Man, I really appreciate y'all. It done got dark on me since I've been recording this video. That's crazy. Man, I really appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all stay tuned. Again, I'm working on content constantly. And so like in a few days, y'all are about to start getting videos, maybe like 2 videos a day type of stuff, all kinds of stuff. I know we're on a bye week. I know the Commanders are on break, but if anything, that just means it's more work for me to do since I don't have a game to live stream on Sunday. It's just way more videos. I have so many ideas and stuff. So yeah, make sure y'all stay tuned. And again, YouTube is back in full effect. So if you still want to support the channel by CashApp and PayPal, I definitely prefer that. But at the same time, we have the super chat back so you can donate through there directly through YouTube. You can become a channel member. Shouts out to all of y'all, man. I really appreciate y'all. Stay tuned. And at the very least, if you want to donate to the channel, liking the video is free. Leave a like on the way out and also leave a comment. Even if you don't feel like you have anything important to say, just leave a comment. Just say, what's up, Rico? Anything. I really appreciate it. Y'all don't understand. So, man, I'm going to try to do my best to read and reply to every comment. I'm going to catch y'all later. I'm out.